Today's episode is a very special one because we're pulling back the curtain on what actually happens when young designers and design students enter the real world. And I'm joined by someone who sees that transition up close every single day, and her name is Brianna Brailey. She spent years helping college students prepare for co-ops, internships, and their early careers, and she's seen the entire spectrum of students. She's seen the students who are ready to go, the students who think they're ready to go, and the ones who need a little bit more grounding before they're really ready to hit the industry. In this conversation, we get into all of it. The reality of co-ops and internships, the disconnect between what students expect and what studios and companies actually want, the shift in design fundamentals and design education, and we get into the one thing that consistently separates job-ready designers from everyone else. If you're a student, a new designer, or someone who's been wondering how prepared you actually are for this industry, this is the episode that you need. But before we get into it, I'm Ziggy the Designer. I'm a graphic designer who's worked alongside some of the world's most recognizable brands, including United Airlines, Target, and Stanford University. If you like the conversations we're having on this show, be sure to support the channel by giving this episode a like, leaving a comment down below, and of course, by subscribing. In fact, at the time of recording, we are very close to hitting 1,000 subscribers here at Ziggy the Designer. Can we get to 1,000 by the end of the year? I think we can do it. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Let's get into our conversation. Brianna Brailey, first and foremost, thank you for joining us here on Ziggy the Designer. So for those unfamiliar, how would you define your role in the world of graphic design? You know, what's your unique perspective on the industry?
Sure. So I did study graphic design in undergrad. I have an undergraduate degree in graphic design. Graduated from the University of Cincinnati College of Design, Architecture, Art, and Planning, or DAAP, in 2014. And I participated in UC's co-op program while I was a student. So my co-ops were primarily in brand and package. I did 4 co-op rotations in brand and package, and then I did 1 co-op rotation in apparel graphics. And then I worked as a marketing designer and digital designer for a few years after college. And now I, since 2019, have been back at UC in what we call the co-op faculty advisor role. So I now help, I administer the co-op program for communication design students, teach professionalism classes, teach them how to develop their resume portfolio, how to apply to jobs, and then also support students while they are working in the field. So that's kind of where I'm at right now in graphic design. And then I'm still working as a freelance designer on the side too. Yes.
Yeah, so you have a very unique mix of experience with all of the professional work, but with all the work that you have in higher education, you know, working directly with students, I think that's some really awesome work that you're doing. So let's get right into it then, Brianna. There's a lot of chatter, or rather a growing concern about a noticeable decrease in available design opportunities. And, you know, you work pretty closely with design students, and I'm wondering, you know, do you feel that there's any truth behind this growing chatter? What factors are contributing to this trend? And is this something that's temporary, or is this more of an enduring transformation we're seeing in the design industry?
Mm-hmm. I think it really depends on where you live, to be very honest. So I live in Cincinnati, and I do see quite a few design positions come up. Like that's part of my job, is just keeping an eye on the market, and I am seeing quite a few positions come up. I have noticed that I do think I've been seeing fewer entry-level positions come up. So I do think I'm seeing more of the mid-level to senior roles come up and fewer of those like early junior designer or even like, designer one type level of job. Um, and I don't know. I think in reading about the job market and the way things have been going, that is not unique to design, that there are fewer, it seems like there's fewer entry level jobs in it, and seemingly there are more of those mid-level jobs. And I know that there's some concern that it has to do with the proliferation of AI, which may be true. I think truly what I have been seeing in many industries, and not just design, is that there's more rushing to get things done. Like things have become much faster, like year after year over year, where the metrics are higher, the expectations are higher. And I think what the result has been is less patience for training the next level, the next generation of people. But then also, I do think that unfortunately, some people entering the job market out of college have been unprepared.
So then, considering these new realities or these new conditions in the market, how do you believe design education needs to adapt in order to prepare students for the current industry demands effectively? Right? Is it time for an overhaul of design education, or is this more where we're thinking about strategic adjustments?
I will admit extreme bias on my end because I have most of my experience with UC's program. And being an alumni and then now working in there, I do think that they're doing things well. And I do think that the big differentiator for UC is two things. On the design education side, I think that they do a really nice job of moving beyond just visual design, because so many, and they've recently updated the curriculum and changed the name of the major to communication design instead of what it was when I was a student, which was graphic design. And I think that was a very smart and strategic move, because in my own career, I have noticed, like, yes, I started as a visual designer, but my job very quickly went beyond that. And now I would say that I think that those foundations I learned in my undergraduate of problem solving, of user research, of like empathy, design thinking, was so useful to me to be able to expand beyond visual design. Or if I had continued in the visual design path, I think that would have differentiated me too. So I think from the design perspective, and I know a lot of programs are doing that, so I would say that is a great way to be moving. And then the second piece that I think UC is unique to UC is our co-op program, and that ability to very early in your career learn not only the theory, but also like how is it actually happening in the world? Because that is the thing that always stood out to me as a student, was how different co-op was versus school. And I was a kid that did pretty well on co-op. That was my favorite. I would work really, really hard on co-op, and then I was like a B level student. I didn't try as hard when I was in school. And I think I'm reflecting on that now. And one, I wish I could redo my undergrad, but two, I think it was that, like, the urgency, the real life practicality, the like knowing that things were real and that there were clients and there was people paying and there was people relying on you, that really made a big difference for me. But then I think also, like, you're not like when you're in school, you get to design in this vacuum. You get to be the creative director. You get to do every single thing that you wanted to do. And that's amazing. And I'm glad people get to do that. But it's very different than how we design in the real world. So I do think that is really what I would say design education should be moving, is getting students connected with employers, getting them connected with like other, nonprofits, service learning, other places that they can collaborate with multidisciplinary teams and learn what it means to actually be a designer, like in the real world and not just for themselves.
I absolutely love that. So, Brianna, you mentioned the co op program at the University of Cincinnati. A lot of, some of the viewers here might not know about this program or even what the University of Cincinnati is. So, I think the co-op program is something very special, something very, as you mentioned, unique. What is your little elevator pitch for the co-op program, if you don't mind?
So UC invented co-op, or is short for cooperative education, in 1906. It actually started in our engineering college. And it was a way for, it was one of the engineering faculty, Herman Schneider. We all like, he's like kind of elevated in UC. But his idea was, he was seeing this of like engineering students were graduating from the program, and then there was a huge gap between like what they were expected on an academic level and what they were expected in the workplace. So they called it the great experiment or something like that, was what if our students were working as part of their education? And then it just was gangbusters really from there. So now UC has mandatory co-op for all DAAP majors. So communication, some of them have been added later, but communication design was started with co-op as part of the program. And so what that means in practice is our students complete 3 semesters of design education, and they complete 2 semesters of professional development courses. And then they search for their first co-op, which takes place in the second semester of their sophomore year. And then after that, they alternate between co-op and academic semesters until they graduate. And it does make it a 5-year program.
Yeah, I love the co-op program because, you see similar programs at private art and design institutions, and those private schools are going to do private school things with their admissions and stuff. So having a public institution like UC is really important for access and for equity into programs like that. So it's really amazing work that you're all doing over there.
Yes, and it is wonderful to be able to operate at a state school because we do have a diverse student population, and I do think it allows students from many different backgrounds to have access that they may not have had, because depending on where you came from, you may not have anyone in your family that's in the creative industry. I have quite a few students every year whose parents come from, blue collar or trade backgrounds, and this is quite different for them. They may be first gen college and they've got connections and their parents are successful, but their success looks very different than being in the creative industry. And so they're really kind of starting from scratch. But the co-op program allows them like that kind of path in to start building connections and building their own network. So I do love that.
Exactly. So, we're talking about students now. So let's get into what a successful student looks like, or, from your experience, what the successful student has looked like. What are some of those defining characteristics of a truly successful design student who ends up thriving in a real world professional setting? What sets them apart?
Yeah. We have this phrase that we use a lot, humble and hungry. And I think that kind of sums it up, is the best students are the ones who know that they don't know everything, that they are willing to continue to work on their craft. They have confidence in themselves, but they know that there's a lot of people out there to learn from, and they never let their ego get in the way of opportunity. So that is one thing. And then the other thing is that hunger, taking initiative and being willing to seek out opportunities for yourself, to seek extra feedback, get extra support, try new things, go for it. I think that what I've been noticing, especially, I started teaching at UC right before COVID. I did hire co-op students before then. I didn't mention that in my little intro, but what I have noticed is kind of the before and after is a move towards more being passive and kind of waiting for things to happen. I think some of that, honestly, I blame on, I'm going to send this to people after we finish, but I do blame on the overall marketing for our program is like, you'll get a job and like, you're definitely going to get to do these things. And what I have to do when students come is like this kind of unlearning of like, it doesn't just happen. Like we give you the tools to set you up for success, but ultimately you have to make it happen for yourself. And the thing about design is like, while I think design is very important, our society can run without designers. So it really is like a passion field. And truly, like I do think, as we discussed, the number of jobs are decreasing in certain industries. And I think it's just because they're not growing. And so, you know, if there's 100 people standing behind you in line, like you have to be willing to reach out and get those things and make those things happen for yourself and do things that might make you feel uncomfortable. And that has been challenging, I have noticed, for a lot of my students lately, is living in that discomfort and moving beyond what feels easy. And so that's what I would say is like being willing to listen to others, ask lots of questions, take feedback, keep working on your craft, but then also being willing to put yourself out there and just like try stuff. And it may fail and it may feel crappy, but like you got to do it. You just got to try and you got to show that you care about what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And you're right. This is a passion field. We talked in our first conversation. It's almost like sports, right? Where, the world can operate without sports. So you talked about students utilizing the tools that they have. And one of the biggest tools is their portfolio. When you're reviewing student portfolios, what immediately captures your attention and signals strong, undeniable potential? What's that indisputable mark of quality?
So the biggest thing for me in a student portfolio I'm looking for is ability to tell stories and to demonstrate your thought process. So those, if you can do those two things, I know you're going to be good, because that's really what, especially a senior level or creative director is doing, is telling stories about their work. So if you can demonstrate, and then with that, an ability and willingness to try many different things is what I'm looking for. And when I was hiring co-ops, that's what I was looking for in a young designer, is I was looking for an ability to demonstrate that they had responded to feedback. So that's kind of part of that storytelling, but then also that they were able to think in many different directions and not just, I think what happened, and this is common, this is when you're learning the field, this is what happens. You narrow in on a direction and you think iteration is like options. Really, it's just like one option. So what really shows me that a student has a lot of potential is that ability to genuinely generate multiple visual options, conceptual directions, and to be able to clearly represent how they got from the brief to the final product.
So then, beyond the more tangible portfolio, then what does the quote unquote successful mindset look like for an aspiring designer navigating the current challenges of the industry? Is it just about sheer determination like we've been talking about, or is there something a little bit more nuanced here?
I do think that it's that openness to experience. I do think that makes a difference. I don't want to say that only the most extroverted people are going to be the ones that are successful, because I really don't think that's true. But that being said, I do think you need to be willing to build relationships with people. I think that that's part of it, is like not just like seeing how, like, I think that community mindedness, and that doesn't need to mean like being super willing to go doing public speaking or like doing tons of networking events necessarily, but like that of like that kind of that humility I was talking about, the knowing you need to learn from others, but then also being that humility piece too of saying, I don't know anything and I also don't have any experience. And so I might have to take a job that is not my dream job to, and then I can have that hunger of like continuing to like either find opportunities for creativity in this less than exciting job or make them for myself outside of work so that I can get that thing. Because I think that's what it is. I have noticed is people finish these degrees and they're like, well, now I'm going to go get my fancy agency job. I will take that now. And it's just not how it is. It's just not. Like, you have to meet people. You have to like, you do have to get people to like you. I think that's the thing is like in design, it is still, like we said, passion driven, and it still is very like you're working with a team, and those people need to know that you can contribute to their team. It's not just about like you had the most beautiful capstone project. It's about all those other things. So I would say that successful mindset is thinking of how community can be beneficial to you, and how not just how it can be beneficial to you, but how you can benefit others. And I think the openness to experience and the willingness to know that you're going to have to build your way up. And that's how this has always been. It's really not a change. It's like, I mean, I was just telling one of the communication design faculty, I'm like, software jobs have always sucked. Like, it's just how it is. It's like, when I was a student, there was still a lot of analog thing. We were kind of in the middle of transitioning to fully digital. And I'm like, I mean, I was using the X-Acto knife and I was making comps of the packaging. I was making foam core presentation boards. My friends were doing clipping paths in Photoshop because that hadn't been outsourced yet. I mean, like those are the kinds of jobs that you probably are going to have first. And if I hear the word grunt work again one more time from my students, I'm truly going to scream, because I'm like, guys, that's how you show that you're good. That's how you get trusted with more work, is like, did I do a really, really good job renaming and organizing all these files? Is it fun? No. Is it sexy? Absolutely not. But that's how you can get in, is like realizing that we still are still in kind of that apprenticeship idea that when our industry started, of like, you have to demonstrate that you can do it, because our jobs are very high stakes. Like, no, you're not a brain surgeon, but like when the creative fails, I think Cracker Barrel redesign is a good thing, is like, it's on a big stage and like people's jobs are at stake. So they're not going to trust you with the client work until you've proven that you're like good at spelling, for example. Like it's those little things. So it's like, you have to be willing to grind a little bit to get what you want. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, I feel like design has gotten so corporate that it is easy to forget that what we do as designers is a trade. And I know we're coming up on time here, Brianna. I wish we could talk more, but I'm going to wrap us up here with our final question. Looking into the future, what do you believe will be the most critical qualities for designers to possess who truly want to thrive in years to come? What's the formula, essentially, for enduring success in this industry?
I think it really is that problem-solving piece. I think that that's what we're seeing, is that the computers can't do, is they can't solve our problems for us. And that like creative problem solving, like being able to see something from multiple angles, solving it, finding multiple solutions, and then being able to test them, take feedback and reiterate and, revise, continue all the design process. I think that that's what it's going to be, because as we move into, I've seen already, and I've seen from students sometimes, is sometimes I see like very stylistically good work, but there's nothing behind it. It's the style versus substance. So I would say to anyone thinking of entering the industry, or anyone starting out, is push yourself to be a problem solver, and not just making things look pretty, but like actually functioning well. And that's how you will be future proofed, because it won't really matter if you can be you can look at trends, you can solve those problems, you're going to continue to have a job. And it may not be in visual design forever. You may be like me. I'm still doing a ton of design work, but it's just looking different now. And like I said before, I really do think that background in that creative problem solving and research and empathy and humanness building relationships is what's really going to set you apart and keep you going.
Amazing. I love it all. Lots of really great information and lots of really great tidbits. Brianna, thank you so much.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, Ziggy. I appreciate it. It was fun.
That was my conversation with Brianna Brailey, and I hope you caught just how valuable her perspective is. She works with students on the ground level, seeing their portfolios, watching their growth, guiding them into their co-op and internship placements. And she's honest about where the industry is now and where it's heading. We talked about the real gaps young designers face, why fundamentals matter more than people want to admit, how confidence and communication shape opportunities, and why giving yourself time, real time as a designer to grow your practice is one of the smartest moves you can make. But I want to hear from you. What do you think young designers need most today? And let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. That's all I have for you. If you like this episode, be sure to support the show by giving this episode a like, subscribe, and of course, share this episode out. I've been Ziggy the Designer. If there are 2 things you need to know about me, it's that 1, I love design. And 2, I'm very opinionated. I'll talk with y'all later. Bye-bye.